Hey, this is Jared over at eCarrier Check, and I got Donald in with us with One Plus Logistics, and I'm excited to share his story. Donald, thanks for being on.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Donald, you've got an extensive background in logistics. Tell us about your background. Obviously, you were in the military, but tell us about your background, and then we'll jump into what you've been doing and how your processes work.
Okay, well, obviously, I started my life, I guess you would, out of high school. I went into the military, and I served. My last 4 years were in logistics, so I kind of got an understanding of how it worked. From there, I went into manufacturing. I was there for a couple of years, working in shipping and receiving, and I had a little bit more knowledge. Then I went to the railroad industry, where it was a diverse environment where I saw a little bit of everything. Ultimately, with my wife dispatching and ultimately me finding interest, I landed myself as the owner of a brokerage, freight brokerage called One Plus Logistics, and here I am.
That's awesome. Awesome. So, Donald, how long have you been active, or how long have you been being a freight broker, if you will?
Well, in my head, forever. My brokerage has been active since October of last year.
Okay, I appreciate that. So obviously October, you said, I need to turn on this business. I need to get going. Tell us about the grind. Tell us about being in the trenches. What have you been doing since October, and walk us through that process?
Well, one of the things, when I started in October, I gave it a little bit of time for my brokerage to season. That gave me time to clear out a few things I had going on that I needed to settle out. So I figured I have the authority active. I'll start researching and doing what I have to do in the meanwhile to prepare. But my launch date was January 2022. I said, when I go into the new year, I want to start off new year, new feel, new everything. Authority active, ready to rock and roll. So when January came, around the second week is when I really went active with everything. And it's been an interesting ride.
How so, Donald? Because I would love to hear more about, how did you build credit? What technologies have you used? I've got a lot of good questions. Talk to us through, those first 2 to 3 weeks. What were the challenges and what were the successes?
Okay, well, when I first went active, one of the greatest challenges that I faced was, now I have to take the brokering business seriously. And it's a customer service job. So I have to have clients, I have to have shippers in order to exist. On the other side of the equation, I have to have carriers, because me having the shippers without the carriers, I'm not in business. So you're fighting two battles as a new brokerage owner. The first part of it is going out there, finding reputable shippers that are willing to accept you and give you their business. And that's been the hardest part, learning how to go out, place the cold calls, because there's no formula for this. It's all about the person. You have to be able to speak to people. There's classes that people take, and I'm in class because it helps me tremendously. But at the end of the day, your success depends on you, and that means you have to go out there, make these phone calls, speak to carriers, speak to shippers, and sell your services. When I started off, it was very hard. It sounds like, I guess you would call me Max Headroom, because I would literally read a script, and it was horrible. Actually, I had one phone call that kind of changed the way I operated, because they put me on hold, but they unmuted the phone as I was on hold, and I heard them laughing. And I said, wow, this is not good. This is not good. And they hung up on me. They said, oh, hold please. And then the phone went on mute, and I said, okay, this is bad. So this guy is horrible, blah, blah, blah. I said, okay. So I sat back. It took a couple of days to collect my thoughts, and I said, I have to do things differently. The approach I like to use is I call, and I'm myself. I speak to people like people, hey, how's it going? How's the weather down there where you are, and just go from there. You can get a great feel of how the person on the other line is, how their day is going. You want to make sure you taking consideration of time. I'm calling you blind, and I don't know what you're in the process of doing. So if you have a free moment to chat, let's chat. If not, then we chat at another time. Communication is vital. The way you communicate is vital. Um, and that's one business at a time. As a broker, I never realized that I don't like using the phone. I must have made, to this point, I probably have done over 3,000 calls. I make phone calls every day. Even when I'm not even searching for shippers, I do it just because I have to. But I actually enjoy that part of it. Systems that I like to use, because you did ask me that. So you get a shipper, you land the shipper where I have a few shippers right now. They start sending you the loads they need to move. So some of the things you need to do is you need to get yourself on load board. So I have PAT, truck stop, load board 1, 2, 3, pretty much everything. I subscribe to all of them because it's vital. And I have your platform, which I love, and I'll get to that. And that's why I'm really excited to be here. You have to have the right tools to do the job. The other side of the equation now is you have the shipper, you have the loads, you have a place to post them. Now you need to bring truckers to you. You need to bring carriers to you. So you can put your loads on the load board all you want. And I've learned my lesson on doing this. They're not going to necessarily call you. You have to go out and you have to initiate contact. So that means that you will actually be picking up the phone again and say, hey, this is such and such, and I have these loads available. I see you have a truck in the area. Can we have a conversation? Or I found your number through our carrier check, because that's what I do that a lot now. And engage in conversation going from there. And it's been very helpful. So technology, that's pretty much the core of what I use every day. And it's growing my business. What else can I say?
Yeah, no, that's really good. You know what's interesting, and Nate and I talk about this a lot, because we get into so many carriers, so many brokers, so many dispatchers, and they talk about, it's tough to stay motivated when you're alone. It's tough to stay motivated when you're by yourself, you're sitting in your living room or in your basement or in your office, whatever it may be. How do you stay motivated? How do you stay, in a sense of, I got to pick up the phone and got to do this next call? What does that look like for you?
I'm not here to say that it's always going to be easy, but the truth of the matter is, if you make a commitment to take on an undertaking like this, it's a very expensive venture for a business owner. So you have to be disciplined enough to go out and say that whether or not I want to do this, I have to do this. This is what my job is. I work for myself. This is my business. This is the success of it is solely based upon the performance that I put into it. If I do not work hard for my business to grow, it's not going to grow. It's not going to grow itself. You can't plant a seed and not water it and give it sunlight. You have to literally nurture your baby. And my baby is my brokerage. It takes time. It takes energy. There are days when I'm tired. There are days when I'm frustrated. Today was a frustrating day. Fuel prices have gone up. Unfortunately, my clients did not get the memo, so their prices are still based on 21 days ago, and it's been a tough day. But
Yeah,
I still push forward.
yeah, it's really interesting to, as a freight broker. When I started as a freight broker, you're just grinding. You're picking up the phone. You're just going. You're really trying to stay organized and motivate and get new accounts and get carriers. Obviously, you've had some success in the few months that you've been brokering. How many accounts have you landed in the last, say, 3 months, if you will?
I have 6 shippers.
You have 6 shippers, okay. And
they're not all active, but I have 6 accounts. I do get periodic loads from a couple of them.
Every day they send you loads.
Yes.
How's that process been? Obviously you're trying to find carriers. They send you 6 there's 6 shippers that are trying to send you loads. Talk through that process of finding carriers in that aspect.
Several ways to do it. For me, finding the shippers is going to be a challenge. I don't depend on lists or anything like that, because on social media, I see people have lists. I don't think that's very effective, because you get a list and it's already been saturated. Everyone's already called that. One of the techniques I use is I'll source just by region. I'll go to an area, and I'll start, Google Maps, whatever, and I'll start looking for businesses. Another way is I'll just source out businesses by using Google searches. I'll see a product, I'll say, oh, okay, this is an interesting product. I mean, if you look around your room, everything in here has been, any house has been moved by a truck. So
Yeah.
finding the commodity it's not necessarily the hard part. The hard part is just finding the right person to speak to. So you just get out there, you make calls. The first tool of choice I used was Google. I've been using your program, your platform a lot lately, and it's actually, I have a follow-up off of a carrier that I found sourcing off of a carrier. So another success story there. And I don't mean make it all about that, but I mean,
no, you're totally fine. I used, when I started as a freight broker, I was a big fan of technology. E-carrier check wasn't necessarily invented yet or established yet. Talk through your technology platforms, the benefits, the successes, and really where you seem to kind of hit your stride with technology. That seems to be my cup of tea, is like, okay, man, I'm really hitting this. How do I keep going? So talk to me about your technology.
Well, my technology, believe it or not, I'm kind of old school, so I stick with what I know. So I like to go to Google. Google seems to be my best friend. I'll source orange juice, for example, and I'll see orange juice suppliers in Florida, which, Florida's known for citrus. But I've also found by doing that kind of sourcing, you'll find that there's orange groves all over the country, California. So what you do is and I'm not doing produce, I'm just using it as an example, but I think maybe I might want to call it tomorrow. So I'll just find the other locations and I'll just start, so I'll do a little research into it. Sometimes I'll use Google Maps. I'll go right over the plan. I'll do a flyover, see what it looks like on the ground. Oh, there's warehousing, there's trucks out there. Oh, it looks like reapers are there. Read reviews, do my intel, and then I'll go on and attack the company. And I go right to the same number most people go through, but I just speak to the person on the other end of the line and explain to them who I am, what I want to do. I usually find a way to get them laughing, and that usually gets me through. Once I get through that person, 9 times out of 10, they'll send me to the direction that I need to go. Now, what often happens with a lot of these shippers is they'll send you to I call it the dead phone. They'll tell you, you're on this phone here, and they'll tell you they're going to send you to this phone over here. That's the phone that no one answers. I think they paint it yellow and they just let it ring. You don't want that phone. What you want is you want a name, contact, person to speak to. So that's where you really have to get resourceful. And I can't tell all my secrets, but I get very successful in getting to the right person, to the point where I've had clients this a client I'm trying to bring on now, she actually gave me the cell phone number of the person I need to speak to. And she said, I'm going to call him and tell him to take your call. I was like, see, that's what I'm talking about. So that's what we're going to be on. Yeah.
I think this industry, this brokerage game, the way our industry works is solely on relationships. It's solely on connecting with people. If you were going to list out maybe just one or two things that you have found that's been effective with connecting with people or building relationships, what are those two things, or one thing even for that matter?
You still have a lot of people out there that still believe in personal one-on-one connection. And you can't take that for granted. We've become so impersonal that we depend on technology to forge relationships. Some people just like to sit down and talk on the phone. They want to know who I'm doing business with. And you have to make that the fundamental of who you are. If that's who you are, that's who I am. I believe in communication. I will speak to you. I will call you. And you also have to be receptive on the other end. Let them know if you have a question, my phone is always at my hip. Call me, and we will resolve this together. We run a business that is sales and customer service. The client, that person that sits there, we call that person the keeper of all things big that we like to make money off of. They have a job to do, and their job is to protect the commodity. They want to feel comfortable knowing that I just put $200,000 in the hands of a stranger, and they're moving it from one location to another, because if something goes wrong with that load, they can lose their job. So for us as brokers, and the liabilities, I don't even go into that for being a broker, but you have to take in consideration that that person, if they're calling you, that's because they're concerned. So you need to make sure that the priority that of your service that you offer them is that I stand behind the service I offer. If you can't do that, then you don't need to be in this business. On the other hand, and I say this to brokers because I've spoken to a lot of carriers, we need to be fair. We have to make money because this is a business. But I've seen some brokers do some really unethical things, in my opinion, and we have to be mindful that the carrier has to get their fair share of what we bring to the table as brokers. The shipper, the client, is giving us a threshold to work with, but we also have to understand that after we click our mouse and our carrier loads up, they have the Raycon, they have their load in the back of their truck, and they're on the road. They're the one that's away from their family. They're the ones that we can't forget about. So we also have to have that connection with them. So we are true middlemen, but we have to do it the right way. And I'm not doing anything but the right business. That's the way I am.
I love
Sorry, I
that.
may have gone off subject there, but
Yeah, no, I love where your head's at. I had, when I was a broker, I had the same mentality. You know what? You have to do the right thing when it's the time to do the right thing. And you got to build relationships with people, and trying to build trust is such you're building trust over here, over your phone. And it can be tough. It's not easy to build trust with somebody over a 2-minute conversation, over them sending out a shipment. Like you said, a couple $100,000, $50,000, whatever their shipment's worth. How do you build trust in such a quick way? And I love, what you hit on there. Obviously, you've gotten some accounts. What have you learned from when you get those shipments? You get all those emails. They're telling you, hey, I got to move all these loads from point A to point B. Talk to me about some of the scars you've learned in trying to move a load.
Well, you have to, one of the things you need to do is you need to understand that you're taking ownership of the load. And I'll just segue a little bit away from that. My greatest struggle was now I have a shippers. I'm posting my loads, I'm getting phone calls, and now what do? I lost a lot of loads because I didn't move fast enough. So you need to move quickly.
Okay.
You need to have all your ducks need to be in a row. So I know that the load is here, the shippers need to move, I have a carrier. I need to make sure that I follow the right process. I need to keep track of the documentation that supports that move, and I need to follow up at the conclusion of the move. And you need to be accurate. You got to be accurate. Make sure you don't miss out on details. Read the requirements of the load before you send that rate confirmation to the carrier, because you want to make sure that you don't miss any details. If that load needs to be tarped, and I do a lot of tarp freight, make sure you specify must be tarped, because if it arrives at its receiver and the load is rusted away, and you didn't put on the tender that it needs to be tarped and maintained, or even with respect to produce, a certain temperature, you're not really doing your job. So I've spoken to other brokers and say, oh, that's why I have errors and omissions insurance. Yeah, well, who wants to deal with the insurance factor, when you could have avoided it just by paying attention to detail? Take your time, make sure you understand what you're telling the carrier to do. Because when that carrier gets there and they have that rate confirmation, 9 times out of 10, they're just going to get their load and go. If you don't put specific information into that paperwork, they're not going to know what to do. If the client requires tracking of the load, you make sure that your carriers follow the rules. Put in the Raycon. I want a check call if you're dealing with dispatchers, check call every morning at 7 a.m. Shoot me an email, let me know. Make sure you satisfy your client. Your job is to satisfy the client.
Yeah. God, I tell you what, I gotta tell you, just a terrible failure on my end is one of the first accounts I brought on as a freight broker. I I just didn't read their rate con, and heaven forbid I pay attention to detail. And I didn't see that they need pipe stakes. I didn't see that they needed 6-foot tarps instead of 4-foot tarps. Um, I didn't see that they were closing at 3 o'clock instead of what I felt like should have been a normal day. And this was when I first started brokering. So sort of start in the same place where you were. And I didn't pay attention to detail. Honestly, of all the things that you just said here, Donald, everybody that's watching this, you have to pay attention to detail. And it doesn't matter if you're talking to the carrier or you're talking to the client. This is it. This is everything. This is how you lose clients. This is how you make a difference in your carrier conversations. So, Donald, I think you hit it on the head. This is such a huge, huge part of what we do, and it's paying attention to detail. So please, if you're watching this, detail, 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 detail. I love that. Donald, obviously I feel like, you and I met through a training program. You're still feeding your mind. I'd be curious about not only how are you feeding your mind, how are you training, but how are you using social media and those aspects? Talk to me through the training and then dive into social media.
Well, the training, that's still ongoing. I really don't even know where to touch on that. It's a great program. I'm in the Exodus Learning Program. Charles Mundy.
Yeah.
I met him. I didn't meet him personally. I met him through YouTube, believe it or not. And that's what kind of led me to where I am right now. I really don't know how to describe it other than that it's a great program. There's a lot of one-on-one, if you would. There's a lot of forum discussion, and he brings in a lot of visitors and guests to help out, and it's just a great training program. I will probably be in his training program after just because you always, it's just so many hidden gems in it. I'm sorry, what was the other part of it?
Social media.
No, social media. Social media. How does that work? Oh boy, social media is like that. It's that thing that you want to have, but you don't want to have. What I'll do is I'm involved with a lot of different forums. So, I go on there and if I okay, flatbed group, if I need a load moved, I'll reach out to see if anyone wants to move it. But what it also does is it gives you a place where you can also pick up knowledge. You can help people. There's a lot of people out there that are in this industry that aren't getting proper training, and they'll ask questions. So I try to help out when I can. I'm seeing people ask questions, and some of the stuff that a few months ago, I was in the same place where they are. But it's a little concerning when I see these people have active authorities, active brokerages, and they're asking questions. And that's a little concerning to me, but that's another story. But social media is a great place to network. I've brought on a lot of carriers through social media. And I'm getting to a point now where I might be moving loads through social media the way it's working out. I've been connecting with a lot of dispatchers on it. So it's a great place.
Donald, tell me, what platforms are you utilizing in social media aspect? Can you give us a rundown of that?
Well, Facebook was always my go-to, but I've been digging deeper into the use of LinkedIn. I went on LinkedIn today and I had 20 some odd messages, and I was just like, whoa, I need to pay attention to this. So what I'll be doing in the future and moving forward is trying to foster relationships with people in the industry through LinkedIn. I think that's enables people that are in the industry just sending me introductions and reaching out.
Yeah, honestly, I can say that I've developed some of the most interesting and really, personally fulfilling relationships I've built on social media. And so Facebook has been huge for me. LinkedIn has just been that's been the platform that's really developed me the most. But I think something that you said that was really interesting. You said you're looking for people, that you see people. I think immersion in this industry is so huge and so critical of understanding, what are the trends? What are people dealing with? What are the loads? What's going on? And so, you mentioned Facebook is your go-to, and there's so many Facebook groups that are moving freight, and so many Facebook groups that are trying to grow and build. Donald, I love that. Donald, walk me through, obviously you're a visionary guy. You've had the ability to go from where you were at to getting 6 accounts to building some loads. What's Donald look like in a year? What's 2023 look like? And what are you expecting to go to, and where are you going?
So by 2023, I'm envisioning that my company will be firmly established, reputable. And I'm hoping once I have a good SOP formulated, once I lock down the way I want business run, I plan on bringing on at least 1 or 2 more agents. And not so much an agent that's firmly seated, but someone that's willing to grow and learn and let me mentor and mold them the right way. I'm not big enough right now to bring on agents that have been around for a long time, because it brings a lot of challenges in my mind anyway. What I would like to see, I would like to see new agents that have, multiple brains, that will work within the rules that I have set in place, and, help the company move, and we all move together. So that's where I see myself. A few more clients in place, hopefully next year, but I want clients that are really, really solid clients. That's what I would like to see.
Yeah, consistency is tough with clients, right? Where they're sending every loads every day. Donald, I love your vision. If you were going to go back to Donald of 18 years old, obviously you've had some scars, you've built a business, you've been in the industry, you've been in the military. What's some advice you'd give to 18-year-old Donald?
Don't be stupid. I would tell my 18-year-old self that, think long-term and not think so, short-term, immediate. Understand that big opportunities are in front of you. You just have to see the small footprint they leave and grow from there. And always stay focused and keep your eyes on the prize. The 18-year-old me was a very different person than this 51-year-old me today. But I have sons that I'm moving in the right direction.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. Donald, same question, but obviously we have a lot of people that are just getting going in the industry here, a few months ahead of them, or even, kind of a career ahead of them because you've been in logistics. What advice would you give them as far as, they're alone at their house, they're trying to learn this industry and understand the difference between backhaul and head haul, and trying to understand all this jargon that's in our industry? What advice would you give them?
I would advise them to not give up, because the first thing most people do is they get frustrated and they walk away from opportunities. You might only be 1 step away from where you want to be. You never give up. So if you don't know, reach out to someone, find yourself a mentor. Do not be afraid to have challenges, because that's life. I've had challenges in my life. You don't give up. You keep pushing forward. We don't have cloudy days every day, do we?
Yeah. God, I love that. Yeah, we need to go have a coffee together in person, Donald. I love what's going on. Donald,